Okay, so the premise of the game is you play as this guy. His name is Jan Dolsky. You are sent out on a mission. Let me turn this down just a little more so it doesn't overpower. You are sent out on a mission to look for a rare, not even known if existed, substance called rapidium, like rapid, like quick rapidium. You got into space because you needed to help save planet Earth from question mark, like actual question mark. I don't even know that full context yet. You crash land on this planet. Your entire crew dies. You're the only one alive. And the premise is that this planet that you're on here, the sun, as the planet rotates and the sun takes over, the sun basically scorches and destroys everything it touches. Super deadly. So you find your mobile base that is there, but you can't operate it with one man. So just as it happens, you find some rapidium, which you'll see in a little bit, or maybe not just yet actually. You'll see some rapidium, which you'll find you find some rapidium, you'll see it in a little bit. You get in touch with Earth. Earth goes, hey, you can actually use that to, probably not allowed, but make alters of yourself, which is kind of like their cloning. The movement is a little clunky. Yes, I will very honestly go over some good stuff and bad stuff of the game later. But the movement has momentum. You know what I mean? So if you're running, if you hold W and you press S, your character will do that kind of thing. We'll talk about that later. So you can use rapidium to make alters of yourself, which is kind of like cloning. It's not really cloning. So what happens is when you make these alters, you have major, I'll show it in a second, you have major life decisions throughout Jan's history that you'll learn. I'll show you in a little bit. Things like, hey, do I want to go to med school? Do I not want to go to med school? Should I go to university? Should I not go to university? Things like that. So you find major branching points of your life, and you can choose at that moment in your life to create an alter, and you basically create a version of yourself that would have done the opposite choice. So in the theoretical example of like, oh, did I want to go to med school? Did I not want to go to med school? Let's say the main character you see here, Jan, didn't go to med school. You can choose the branching option of the med school option and then create a like scientist, smart guy alter of yourself. So then everything before the branching point, I'll show you in a moment, you guys share memories of because you're the same person. But after that point, you're two different people. And so you create these people, these alters, in order to help man your ship. So you can see the crew's dead here, like I said. I'll skip forward a bit because you just run around finding out that your crew's all dead here. There's your mobile base. The game looks pretty nice, man. So you get together your crew to keep the base moving, otherwise the sun's going to kill you. You find rapidium. Earth's like, ooh, you found rapidium. We want the rapidium. You know, we're going to try to rescue you, obviously, blah, 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 blah. And that's the setting narrative of the game. That is what's happening. So yeah, somebody said replayability. Yes, there are quite a few alters you can do. I think 11 altogether. And you can only choose so many through a playthrough. So it does change your gameplay. And again, this game is first and foremost like narrative driven, but it has various genre elements. It has various genre elements that kind of make the game going. So for instance, for your base, you need to add modules to the base, which means you need to go out and, explore the area and mine for various resources like metals and minerals and organics and that kind of stuff. Little one, I heard you the first 14 times. And then, you need to make food, right? Because you got to, feed the altars. And none of these go, a lot of these elements don't go, too heavily into, a survival crafter element. It has I think I might all tabbed here. Yeah. It doesn't have, too heavy survival crafter elements compared to, a traditional survivor crafter game. But, there is, you know, there's some survival crafting, there's some base management, there's obviously colony sim management, there's like heavy narrative choices to make that do change the outcome of your story, and there are multiple endings we were told and stuff like that. So there's a few things to do, like a few different genres that kind of sustain the gameplay. So that is the general setting of I'm looking at my notes here. That is the general setting of the game, and of course, with the intro that I gave about 11-bit, you can imagine that you need to maintain relationships with your alters and keep them happy, and some crazy shit's gonna happen, and you need to make tough choices. And this is the inside of your base, by the way. And you know, fit their needs, and sometimes one of them's like, oh hey, I want to exercise, so then you have to like build a gym, or you don't build a gym and then they get upset, you know, things like that. Can your alters rebel and kill you? Honestly, probably. I don't know. Right, I saw 8 hours of like the 25 to 30 hour game, and it was like all still pretty early on. Also, I'll answer more questions. We can answer some spot questions on the way, but is there any combat? There's pretty minimal combat, but there is some like kind of combat. Like, there's not like aliens that attack you with guns or anything like that. I'll get into that a bit, though. There are like dangers out in the world, though, I think is better to say. Little one, I beg. Young cat mewing in the corner. Okay, so that's the premise of the game. So I want to give you an example of what the like branching, making an altar stuff looks like. So I'm going to skip around here just for a second. We're going to 44, 17. And so here is, so this is where you call Earth, and they're like, use the Rapidium to clone yourself and shit like that. So this is what your memory bank as the main character, Jan Dolsky, looks like. So you'll see in a second. This is the first time you go and interact with the device. And these are, and then you can read through his history and get to know the character. And all the like major points in his life. You know, skip forward 30 seconds just so you can see it. So you can see I'm looking forward here through like different events. Obviously, all of the events are like traumatic, and your dad would beat your mom and things like that. Like actually, like that was like part of his story. So you go through a bunch of these different story points, and you can see like there. In just a second. So you can see here this like little string going up to the top. So that's like a place where you have like a branching opportunity. So you go through Jan's life here. There's like 20 different points or something. A lot of stuff on here that you can go through. So throughout his whole life, I think he's like 35. So every like 2 to 3 years, there was kind of a note about his life with his parents growing up, you know, meeting a lady, tough times in his life, etc. That being said, once you actually are ready to choose an altar and like do the branching, it looks like this. How's you getting? Oh, too tight. You can more specifically enter the timestamps here. Okay, so you'll see it in a second. The kind of like decisions you make with your like life string. So you can see here I've already branched. There are 2 altars, by the way, that are story mandatory. So really you have choice of like 9 or whatever after. One of them is the technician, and the other one's the scientist, which are the 2 we have here. There is a demo of this game available, yeah. So here, this is the process of choosing another altar. So you can see here, I've already chosen like the main string or line or whatever is this middle one here. And then, you know, I chose scientist going here, and technician you have to choose. It's like the first one you do. It's kind of like part of the tutorial. You choose it here, and you can see all these like icons all over the place. Those are different branching points where you can choose different altars based on, and like they give you, you know, different perks and stuff like that. And of course, as I explained earlier, so for instance here with the scientist guy, right? Everything to the left of this point you share memories of. So if you go talk to the scientist and you're like, hey man, remember when we were like 12 years old and like ate dog poop? And they're like, yeah, that was really funny. But everything past the branching point, you're two different people. So you don't share memories at that point. And that guy, that scientist, has lived his own life technically at that point. He has it like his alternate life. So he's done stuff that you don't know about. He's seen technology and stuff that maybe doesn't exist in your universe, that kind of thing. Once you've like created all these different alters and stuff, they of course, as I mentioned, have their own like, you know, feelings and like necessities and colony sim management kind of stuff, right? So for instance, so here in a second you'll see there's a lot of narrative choices, and they constantly ask you questions and like, hey, should we do this? Should we do that? And they have their own, like here, they have their own, you just saw there. In a second. I accidentally went past it, my bad. Why is this player so shit? There we go. So like here, this is, for instance, one of the altar pages. Event log. He slept on the floor, so you need to build him a dorm so he's happy. Things like that. Emotional status. Obviously, if they're in negative emotion, they'll like work less efficiently. They're more prone to, you know, causing issues in the base. Blah, blah, blah. Things like that. So you want to try to keep them happy. And based on your dialogue choices with them, oftentimes they will, like little pop-ups will happen where like they'll have increased frustration or decreased frustration, and kind of like little pop-ups during the dialogue with them, which you should, which we'll see in a second. Here.
Plenty of beer.
So this is like a typical conversation.
Nothing better than a bottle of cheap, lukewarm beer, am I right?
And then while they're talking, you know, you choose different things, and sometimes based on what you choose, especially if there's like a more important option, it'll give you various darn alerts off for this. Yeah, I can turn them off.
There's plenty of
It's not like some like big official presentation, but based on your choices, they'll have like different emotional states. So whatever I just chose there made him happy, less gloomy, etc. So by doing that, you keep them happy, you keep the base running better, etc. There are times, of course, as well, when you're going to have like bigger decisions to do, that like, because two of the alters will be arguing, for instance. So let's see here. Oops. So sometimes you'll enter the ship and it'll say this, like two of them are arguing, and then you'll be like, uh-oh, what's going on? Like there's like events that happen while you're on board. So you go talk to them, and then these kind of situations come up. So it'll be like, hey man, one guy wants better food, but the other guy says that's a waste of resources and we need to focus on the mission, right? I don't have VLC right now, so. So you need to make these kind of decisions or not to get involved. That's up to you. And of course, that's going to, you know, build your rep up with one guy, or make one guy unhappy, make one guy happy, or things like that. So it's constant decisions that you have to keep making in the base. And then, so moving away from like the narrative aspect a bit too, there is like tech tree and progression in the game, where you have to, like I said, there is obviously, of course, a base management aspect to the game. So as you build modules in your base, which I'll get to in a bit, you're going to have different things, right? Like, for instance, you build outposts to get metals and minerals, you know, out in the world. You need to produce food. You need to build things in a workshop. As parts of your base need maintenance, otherwise they break down. All of these jobs that you do, you need to like constantly assign people to, or do yourself. It's up to you. But like there is a minimum of stuff that needs to be done. Like every day, each altar consumes a meal, right? So like you need to have food cooked, otherwise they get pissed off and they starve and stuff like that. So you'll see in a second here. I'll pause this one. And once we go over to Okay, so this is this is like the tech tree stuff, and it's going to go into the altar stuff. So in this tech tree is where you research a lot of things that have to do with like, you know, mining efficiency, exploration, as you can see, different modules for your base. Mission stuff is like relevant to the main story. So there is a research area here. And the reason the scientist is mandatory is because he's the only one that can do the research. So this is your like tech tree throughout the game as you go on. And oftentimes they need either different resources or time investment, as you saw in the bottom right corner. If you saw it for a second, there you go, like estimated time, 6 hours in the game, in-game hours. So there's just like a lot of things here that like you constantly need to do. And then here in this scene, this is where you assign people, and based on the altars that you work with, this is where like some of them have different perks. So for instance, the technician, the first main guy you need to get, is really good at doing base maintenance. He has like 50% efficiency doing base maintenance. So if there's ever any base maintenance needed, which it tells you here if something breaks down, then you prefer to assign him to that. But there's a lot of tasks. I mean, this is like a small handful of tasks early in Act 1 or like halfway through Act 1, which is quite early into the game. I don't know if the demo went up to that point, but if it didn't, it was probably pretty close to it. So you want, you know, like you need to constantly balance things, right? You need materials to upgrade your base. You need some of the materials that you harvest out in the world, like organics, you need them for food, but then that food needs to be processed and cooked in the kitchen. So somebody needs to be doing that. And you got to keep up to date on your tech tree, and only the scientist can do that. And then sometimes the base breaks down, so the technician needs to do that. And, you know, sometimes you need to produce like a couple of, because like you constantly need to produce items too, to like stave off radiation. I'll get into that a little later. Or to, you know, you need drills to like drill rocks out in the world so you can explore more. Like you constantly need these like little items, or you need like materials for pylons out in the world to connect like power lines and that kind of stuff. So there's a constant like assigning thing going on, where it's like, okay, well, my priority is this, but like somebody should always be cooking food because we need food and blah 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 blah. And the game is very good usually about telling you let me see if I can get like, so like in the top left here, the game's usually very good about telling you like, hey, like the technician, if you assign the technician to go repair the base, he will go, hey, I've finished repairing the base. Do you want me to do this instead? And he'll like suggest a different task. Or you can just manually go to the menu and assign it yourself. So you don't constantly have to micro check it yourself. But Garrus, man, thanks for the Reserverino. You don't constantly have to go check it yourself. They'll tell you, but if you want to like min max, you probably want to. Well, if you want to make your own priorities, like let's say the technician says like, hey, I'm done at the work. I'm done maintenance. Do you want me to go to the workshop? But then like you could send him to the workshop to make some items. You could make him or make him go to the kitchen and cook. He will suggest one thing, but you might want him to cook food because that's your priority right now. So you'll still have to open up the menu and tell him to go to the kitchen, but they will tell you when they're done, etc. And if there's anything important that they want to talk to you about, they have this little chat bubble next to them too. So you know that like, hey, when I go to the base, I want to talk to the technician. And usually they'll queue up as well and go like, hey, I need to talk to you about something next time you're here or next time you're available. So that's another cue to go talk to them as well. So that's the kind of system you get going. Early on, it's like easier. Of course, you have like 1, 2 guys. Later on, you get more, like 3, 4, 5, whatever. And things get more complex. More jobs are needed. So the game definitely like has like a bit of a ramp period. And I'll talk about this in like the pros and cons of my opinions later. But there definitely is like the game eases you in, and then like pretty like fairly quickly starts to get out of hand before you realize it. Because at the beginning you're like, oh, I just need this basic resource and someone's got to cook the food and we're good. But then you add another task, and then you add another guy, and then you choose another guy, and then 3 more tasks, and then you build another outpost, and then you build another module in your base, and then all of a sudden you're like, can you give them default assignments like technician have done go default for base maintenance? I don't think so, but it might be a perk later from the tech tree, if that makes sense, Demus. I didn't see that. I know exactly what you're talking about. I didn't see anything like that, and it would definitely be nice to have a priority assignment for them. I don't know if it exists later, but to the point I played, no, there was no like if you finish here, go work here kind of thing. So there was, I would say, definitely a little bit of like, okay, this could be like a little cleaner. I think some people are going to have that and be like, okay, well, I don't want to have to like constantly reassign them. I just want to say like, hey, this is your priority, 1, 2, 3. If this is not done, go do that kind of thing. But as of right now, no, you have to like assign them. And if they finish their job at that station, they will say they're done. And if you don't reassign them, they will just stay there doing nothing. I'll go over that in a bit. You didn't miss it yet. Nay. So yeah, so there is no kind of that system either in the game or to the point that I got to play in the game. There are some perks you unlock later for that kind of stuff, like construction and like, for instance, early on when you, I'll use food again as an example. You cook food, right? There's 2 different tiers of food as far as I saw. Well, 3 different tiers. There's raw food, and you can either turn it into mush or like good food, and then, you know, their happiness is based on that. But let's say you go to the base and you assign 10 cooked food, and somebody goes and cooks it, or you go and cook it. You then go, oh shit, we actually need like 5. We need 10 more. So you assign another 10. Somebody cooks it. Later on, you unlock a perk that allows you to put like upkeep, I think it was called. So you can literally always have, assuming you have the resources, always have a minimum of 10 cooked food in the base. So that way you don't need to constantly assign it. You just assign like, always have at least 10, always have at least 5, always make as many of these as possible, whatever it may be. So that being said, there might be a perk like that for people's priority later on, and I just didn't get to it. I don't know. I will say that for QOL, the nice thing is you don't actually, I kept saying going to the base. You don't actually need to go to the base. If you're exploring outside and running around, you can just open up the menu, like the menu that we saw a moment ago, and assign from there. So if you're out in the middle of the area and you're like, oh crap, I forgot to assign food for the day, you just open up the menu and assign food. You don't have to go back to your base. So it's not like a pain in the ass to do that kind of stuff. It's generally quite good about QL stuff like that. There's no storage. There is a storage in the game. Like you can only hold so many materials and stuff at once, but there's no like, there's no like stash. So for instance, if you build some pylons for electricity, because you got to connect electricity to your outposts, you don't need to go back to your base, bring 10 pylons with you, blah, blah, blah. None of that stuff. If you have 10 pylons, they're just in your bags. You can use them whenever. If you're out and one of your altars finishes building pylons, you will just have them in your bags. So there's no stash, inventory maintenance, anything like that in this game at all. The only stash-y stuff you have is storage, as you can kind of see at the bottom of the screen there. There we go. And that's just your cap on like materials, so you can't just farm like a trillion metal, that kind of thing. Cool. So, that being said, the game's setting is definitely very immersive. You might not like it. You might like it. Like Advent said, like, I don't like the setting of the planet earlier. That's fine. But they definitely do a very good, like, setting immersion of the game, in my opinion. And I'm usually like a stickler about that kind of stuff. And albeit we only saw basically 2 biomes. I'm just going to play this little clip here. Both of the biomes looked different, and there was some different stuff, so I'm curious to see what else comes up later. I'll show you the second biome later into the new footage once we're done our little chat, and I kind of give my thoughts towards the end. But the game is definitely very atmospheric. It does look very cool, right?
This is not good.
Like you are on some like desolate lava-filled shit planet that you need to like desperately get off of. So the game definitely looks pretty nice. It was cool. The music was really good. The music was done by Piotr again, which is the guy that did Frostpunk and Witcher 3 and Frostpunk 2 and that guy. So it was definitely very like, the vibes are on for the game. Immersion was certainly there. Let's talk a second about the base and building and mining and stuff like that. So as you're running around in the world, you will, and by the way, when I say world, it's not a big open world. You kind of like, you get to an act in a big zone, and there's kind of like a big open zone with it's not procedurally generated. It's all predetermined areas and stuff. So as you're running around, you explore, you find nodes for all the various resources, minerals, metals, enriched resources, rupidium, organics. And when you get to these places, there are kind of like soft nodes that you can literally just go harvest without needing an outpost or anything. And sometimes you even just find scraps of the material on the ground that you can just pick up without needing to even harvest them with a drill. And then other times you need to build an outpost. So this is actually not the clip I was going for, but that's fine because this is exactly what I wanted to show. So to build an outpost, you essentially need to probe the ground for the richest area that the deposit is in, like this. So you make like a little whatever, and then you kind of like look down and you're looking for like a very deep red area. You can press F like I did there, and it'll send a pulse in the direction of where the deep area is. It's just kind of like a little mini game. So I'm like, oh, it's in that direction. Let me check again. Is it here? No, it's not there. Clearly it's up the hill somewhere. Hey, look, I found some scrap rupidium on the ground. We'll just pick that up real quick. And then I'm going to head up and then check that area later. The probes you put down, you can just hold right click and you pick them all back up. So there's nothing like annoying about that. So it's obviously somewhere here. I found some more stuff on the ground, and we're going to look around. And eventually I'll find, I don't know when, probably soon. Eventually I'll find like the deepest possible area. The game automatically triggers when you do, and it puts like it'll put a little circle to say, hey, you can build an outpost here. Outpost is basically just an item in your bag, is just like anything else would be. So once again, I do a pulse. Oh, it's in that direction. So obviously it's going to be in this corner somewhere. I get all my probes back, and there it is. So it found it. That's all. So now I have a mining outpost. I put the mining outpost down, and this mining outpost needs to be connected via power. So we're going to connect it to power, aka back to your ship. It's pretty easy to do. They have like a really long range. You just got to connect them together, and it shows like a string if they're connected or not. Like you see there, the line if they're LOS or not. And then now that this outpost is here, so these outposts don't automatically mine stuff for you, but they are unlimited in mining. However, somebody needs to man them, like I said earlier. So do you want to go and do it yourself? If you need this specific material, do you want to send an alter to do it? That's up to you. Go for it. Once you connect it to power, that is. I will also state that these outposts, I hope I open the map soon, because I didn't put a timestamp for map opening, but I'm sure I will. I'm a clever player. These outposts, once you connect them to power, also act as fast travel locations. There's some of the rocks I said that you need to like bore through. So once I connect this, there you go, there's the map. So these are kind of what the maps look like. Let me freeze it in a better moment here. Bro, why are you such a... Map in a sec, I'm sure again. Correct, Rolanda. Which is why you need to escape the sun before it gets to your position. Okay, so here's like an example. This is the map of like the first area after the tutorial for Act 1. I don't know if this is part of the demo or not. The map's generally pretty comprehensive, so there's our base, obviously. I've built an outpost here for organics already. For minerals, these are enriched minerals, the yellow area. I didn't build an outpost there. It's up to you if you want to or not. That's like a kind of different mechanic. So you have like enriched resources, which you can then refine in your base, and you break them down into two separate resources. So it's very efficient, and you can mine them faster. But while you're there, you get radioactivity, which I'll go over, and it's just a mechanic in the game. So it's basically, do you want a regular outpost, or do you want the enriched one that's faster, but somebody's going to get radioactive buildup? And as I mentioned, you can see like my little dotted lines here. These are my power pylons. You can fast travel between any of these, and it doesn't take time off your day. So as you explore the map, I found that I didn't find myself frustratingly backtracking a lot once I'd established outposts and stuff, and it was pretty easy to establish outposts. You don't need like a massive resource investment or anything like that. You just need to collect the power pylons, and like that's it. And after that, it was good to go. Now this map is obviously not complete. Anywhere you see these like little double arrow icons, it's just unexplored territory. So I just haven't been there yet. So the map gets a fair bit bigger. I don't even explore the whole map. I don't think in my time playing in like the 6 hours, but and there's definitely multiple nodes, and you can see these smaller nodes here, like where my mouse is right now. Those are like one-time farm nodes. It's it's a single player. So yeah, so once I connect this place that I just set up, I'll be able to fast travel between it, the main base, any other outposts, wherever I want. So map travel is really easy at that point. But it is between those nodes. Like you cannot like, oops, I gotta go do Mr. Cat stuff in a minute. You cannot like Hearthstone, so to speak, out of your, like back to your base, at all. Cool. Once you gather all these resources that are used for various things, including, so here's a soft node, you just drill it. Once you're done these things, all of these raw materials are obviously used for various things. Could be for research, could be for producing more equipment like power pylons, outposts like mining stations, or building stuff for your base, because there is a base building element to this game. And let's see here, 419. How many timestamps for all this stuff? Oh, little one. Oh, little one. Yes, you're hungry. I know it's your lunch. Give me a second here, okay? We could actually probably finish this session before lunch, I think, because we don't need to like talk ad nauseum about it. We're probably gonna have a more in-depth discussion, anyways, closer to launch. But I did want to get through everything now. 419. Okay, so here you'll see in a moment what the base kind of looks like. So this is your base. I'll unpause in a sec so it plays a bit. There's a lot of different modules for your base. Some that you discover as you go along. And some that you have initial to you, but like, or you get from like the main mission, or some you have initially that you haven't built yet, things like that. The size of the buildable area is something that's upgradable and can increase. You can see it in the top left, expand base size. And as you'll see in a second, you can reshuffle freely mostly everything that's built here without needing to destroy them, delete them, anything like that. So you just move them around. The only caveat is that they have to be accessible. So like they have to be near an elevator or connected to a different room in order for you to actually, get to them. You can see the green lines on either side. Those are like entrances to the dormitory. So I'm kind of doing a bit of reshuffling here. So for instance, that big circle core looking thing, you can't move that. But more or less everything else you can move. You can move the storages. I can move my elevators. So you can build however you want and maximize your space. Some of the bigger structures you're going to build later, of course, take more space, which is kind of what I'm like doing here. Because I know like ahead of time, like we'll need some more space for some of the stuff. The dormitory is a bigger place, so this is what the base building is in this game essentially. You can freely move it around as you like. So that's what some of the materials are used for. Can you make the wheel square? You absolutely can in your dreams. Cool. Now, somebody asked earlier about combat. I don't know, obviously, what happens in the last, like, 2/3 of the game or whatever that we didn't get to play, or 3/4 of the game, really. There is danger out in the world, and I'll show you in a second. But there is not combat. You don't get a gun and, like, go around shooting and dodging and stuff like that. But there is danger out in exploration, and these are known as anomalies. And the danger they pose to you is either accelerating time, which is a mechanic, and somebody asked earlier, does time accelerate when you mine and stuff? I'll get into the time stuff in just a moment here. So anomalies can pose danger in terms of, like, if they touch you, they increase your radiation, they can accelerate time vastly, stuff like that. So those are your, at least so far that we've seen, those are your, like, enemies out in the world. And they look like this. In fact, I think you might have seen a quick snippet of it just a moment ago too, when I was scrolling through. So they all, like, depending on the mob type, so to speak, for lack of a better term, they all, like, look slightly different, but the general vibe is these kind of things. So you need, like, a special equipment called a Luminator that you get pretty early on in the game, and then you use that to go, like, eliminate these. Like, these kind of nucleus floating cores you can't see or deal with without the Illuminator. Now, these ones are, like, obviously basic, right? They're just kind of sitting there floating, and you can maneuver. There's some other ones that, like, move, some that, like, shrink and expand, some that chase you, some that, like, distort gravity. From the ones we've seen, there's probably more. This was one of the major things that they worked on in the past year, because they really didn't have threats out in the world, and they're like, we need to add something, so they worked a lot to, like, add these kind of things. Now, not only are we destroying them to, like, open up our path here, but they also drop materials, and these materials are used for either research, or you can turn these materials. They're kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? They're kind of like wildcard materials. You can choose to turn them into either minerals or metals or whatever later. Yeah, so yeah, these are more hazards, not combat, yes. So like dangers out in the world. Whilst exploring outside of this and outside of these things, so there's like a deposit that I already mined, outside of like anomalies and the deposits and the various minerals you're trying to get, and general difficulty and exploration of like needing to grapple up or open up some rocks somewhere to find a goal, you'll also find, we're actually going towards it right now. So here I'm just avoiding these anomalies. I just don't feel like dealing with them. Quite frankly. So those are like the intro ones where they just kind of like sit there and they don't do much. I think there's a couple that try to chase you, but you'll also get things like this where you will use the Illuminator. Rarely you'll find these, and basically, yeah, there's an intro trail. You kind of follow the projected plants, holographic plants, and they'll lead you to a like materials and stuff, and some other secrets. In fact, we only got to do one of them, so they're pretty rare. So whilst following this, the reason I'm still playing this clip here is because when you're exploring, oftentimes you'll find, well, you find various things, and I don't think I'm allowed to spoil some of the stuff from Act 2, so I'm not gonna say it, but in Act 1 and Act 2, wait, where am I going? Oh, by the way, I just saw it here. If you guys just saw, the Jan scientist in the top left was like, hey, I'm done here. Do you want me to do something else? So, like, that's the kind of alert that you get. Yeah, so he's done in the kitchen. He says, do you want me to go to the workshop now? You could either say yes or no, or just open the thing yourself, which is what I do, and I figure out where I want to assign him. And as you can see, just out in exploring in the field, I can just craft from there and then tell somebody to go do it if I want to. Triangle is technically the strongest shape. Okay, calm down. So the reason I'm still playing this clip is because as you explore, you find like you can, like in Act 1 and beyond, and amongst other things later on, and probably things I don't even know about, you can find these like discarded suitcases and little crash areas, and you'll find, that was a t-shirt, I didn't pause it fast enough, but you'll find like little memorabilia, like t-shirts, rubber ducky, you know, like things like that, and these are items that you can bring back to your base, and a specific altar will want this item, and it'll basically make them happy. So it's like a little boost to their mood, and it just helps kind of maintain their stuff. So other benefits to exploration is where I'm going with this. That being said, out in the world, let's talk about radiation just a bit here. Radiation is basically just dangerous. You can see the meter. I'm just going to keep playing this for now so you can see the UI. Oops. The meter in the bottom left, the little yellow circle, is my radiation meter. So things like the enriched mineral node area, and specifically I want to show you, there are like dangerous happenings out in the world. Again, I've only seen one. There's like events that happen. Sorry, I've seen two. And there's probably more of them. So it's not just like sunshine and daisies all the time while you're exploring. So while you're out, like in the first area, you can get, 39, give me a second, let me just get,
once you put your finger
you get what's called a magnetic storm, which is exactly what it sounds like.
Hey, what's happening?
So like I was out just mining right now, and all of a sudden a magnetic storm started. I didn't even know what it was. This didn't exist last year, so I was like, oh, what's this? Or at least not to this effect. And it's basically just like if you sit out, there's just mass. Not only is there mass radiation built up while you're outside, but it hammers your base really hard. And in order to prevent radiation from building in your base, you need radiation filters, which you need, of course, resources to build. And it's just something you need to maintain. You use one resource filter per day. There you go, base maintenance and stuff. So during a magnetic storm, you basically want to not be outside. Unless...
Damn it. We don't have
if you mine and farm during a magnetic storm, you get like increased. I'm not sure what's happening here. You get I might have all tabbed or something. You get increased like efficiency in materials farmed. So you could go out and get increased radiation during the storm. Yeah, some issues with my recording here apparently. Or you can just chill in your base and, you know, end the day and whatever. So your altars also have radiation. You don't see any radiation on the top left right now, but if they did have it, they'd have the little radiation icon beside them as well, like I do in the bottom left. So for instance, if I was going to send one of them to farm enriched nodes or do something outside during the magnetic storm, it would build up radiation for them. So you'd have to manage radiation for them. I personally never did that. I just kind of did the outdoor stuff myself because I'm a one-man army. What can I say? But it is something you have to keep an eye on. Early on, I never really had any threat with radiation. Like, it was never like a tough mechanic to manage. I don't think I even got past the first like pip of it. It seemingly became a little more intense later on in like Act 2. There was more sources that could give you radiation, but it wasn't like really a thing. Can altars die? As far as I know, yes. I didn't try. But so that's the radiation management there. And I'll go over just a couple of more elements of the UI here. Yeah, so you can see I went back into the magnetic storm because I'm a Giga Chet, just to farm and mine. So somebody asked earlier, this is actually a really good example, I don't have to skip around now. So your main determination of what you can do in a day is the timer in the bottom left is your day timer. I think 1 minute in game passes every like second or second and a half IRL, something like that. And you basically have 2 breakpoints in your day, or like 2.5. One is when you reach, let me see if I can get somewhere where I'm just running around, because I think I poured back to the base here right away. Like the beginning here, maybe.
Sound advice.
Here we go. So the pink area is the stuff you can do freely for the day. Okay, this is the tutorial. Couldn't have chosen a worse spot. That's your time you can spend doing stuff. Once you get to the striated or like the diagonal lines pink area, your character becomes tired. You can still work and do stuff, but it's like super inefficient. You do it at like 80% reduced speed or something. So if you're really close to finishing, like mining something or whatever, you can crank it and finish it. But if you get to the gray lined area, you're exhausted and your character basically passes out and you end the day automatically. And you also wake up later the next day, so you have less time the next day. So you have to manage a bit. Like how, like what you do, essentially, right? Now, to answer somebody's question, a couple of your questions from earlier, yes, when you do something in the game, like mine, cook food, anything that requires a processing time, which most stuff in the game requires, it does count towards your time. The game will accelerate, so you're not actually sitting there for a minute doing it. You'll go very quickly through it, but it does deplete the time very quickly. I think we had a good clip just earlier. So if I go back to, let's see here. If I go back to like the magnetic storm thing, you can see I go back into the storm.
Once you put your
This is a magnetic storm. So yeah, you can see here, when I start like going back mining, like all the graphics are accelerated, and my time in the bottom left corner goes really quickly, right? So you have limited time in a day to like do stuff. Is food the only way to make the altars happy? No, there's items and stuff you collect, there's choices, narrative choices you make, there's a bunch of stuff. There's a need to eat. Every character on your ship needs to consume 1 meal a day. That's your requirement. To like, actually I don't even know what happens. They might die if you don't feed them. Like, I actually just don't know, straight up. So that task of me digging depleted most of my day. Same with like if I were to go to cook in the kitchen or whatever, like whatever you do, like here too, right? This is like our workbench. So I queue up these radiation filters because the magnetic storm is there and I want to make sure our base is covered. Usually you consume 1 filter a day. I think it's like 2 per day when there's a magnetic storm. So I did that, and then in a moment we're going to get tired.
I'm done here. Should I do this now?
There you go. See, now it says you're tired. I push it a little further because we're almost done, and we don't want to get, like, too ham. The reason I said there's 2.5 breakpoints, by the way, on your day is you can see there's a little indicator there for radiation. 1 minute after you get, like, tired towards the end of the day, there's just mass radiation that happens outside. So you can stay outside during that time, but you're probably going to get hammered with radiation. It's basically the game saying, like, you should probably not be out here anymore. You can if you want, but, like, you're not getting a lot of benefit. It's more like this is your warning to get back to the base, otherwise you're in big trouble kind of thing during it. And finally, the last mechanic I didn't really talk about too much yet. Again, just kind of like a basic maintenance mechanic kind of. I'm just trying to find literally anywhere that I'm outside. Here we go. Is the little charge icon next to the radiation. That's just your suit energy. And that's used for things like when you grapple up a ledge, it uses an energy. When you do the scan thing, so you can see where to put the scanners down to build an outpost, that consumes an energy. Various things will consume your suit energy. Using that luminator to eliminate things, you recharge that by using your suit energy, things like that. Suit energy, you can just build battery packs in the base. You can charge them at, like, mining outposts. You can build special pylons that do it. You start the day fresh with full suit energy, so it's not hard to get, but it is something later on, especially when you're exploring, like, especially in the second zone, newer, bigger map stuff. You have to kind of, like, plan a little bit around, because there are things you're like, okay, well, I need to get, like, up this cliff, and to do, like, these 2 climbs takes, like, 6 energy, and I only have 4 right now. And there might be anomalies up there, too. So basically, carry a bunch of batteries with you. You can recharge at normal pylons, not regular pylons. There's, like bigger pylons you can build for that if you'd like. Are there upgrades to make radiation easier? I think so, yes. Radiation was obviously never really an issue for me, at least, but I do think, yes, there are. I'm trying to build to that outpost out there, by the way, for those minerals where that diamond is. So that is kind of like the general overview of how the game works, with, like, a little more in-depth here and there. That's more or less, like, the gameplay of the game. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you, like, my thoughts, general thoughts on everything that... Not only, like, a lot of people that came this year, it was their first year there. While I do this, by the way, I'm going to play the B-roll footage that they gave us. So what you just saw was my recording of the game on day 1. Day 2 was under heavy NDA, and there's a bunch of, like, story stuff I'm not allowed to talk about there. But we're allowed to show the B-roll of day 2. So this is what they provided us with. So this is brand new. No demo covered this. This is part of Act 2. So this is what the second biome looks like. And once you overcome the issue blocking you in the first biome physically for your base, you get to the second act, and there's, once again, another issue preventing your mobile base from moving, and you have to fix it. So I'll just kind of right here. So here's, like, a new anomaly, by the way.
Anomaly?
So this is like a time dilation anomaly here. The longer you stay in it, the faster your time accelerates, and time's obviously very precious every day, etc., etc. So this is the beginning of, like, the second area. So, you know, definitely a different looking biome. So I touched that guy, not good. It just cranked my their radiation. It's not my playthrough, but they did it on purpose, obviously. I would never do that. So is it like, you know, it's still obviously like a desolate, messed up planet, but you're out of the kind of like the lava crags now, and you're into this kind of dune desert area. So definitely a different biome, and I assume there's going to be more. We didn't see any more past this biome, of course. But to Rolanda's point earlier, by the way, she said, does the sun not just destroy everything? It does. So what happens is you basically have a limited amount of time to finish an act and leave. I got to a point, like, every day you wake up, it says the sun is far, the sun is far. Eventually, if you wait long enough, it says the sun is close. If the sun is close, it makes the days shorter, it makes everything unstable, more resources spawn, whatever. I didn't push it past that, but eventually, if you don't push the act, it'll just kill you. The sun will just kill you, and it'll end your game. So you can die from that. So the idea is to do the stuff you need to do with what is honestly like a pretty comfortable timer, and move on to the next act. When you move to the next act, it automatically picks up everything you've put down and brings it with you. So you don't lose it. You don't have to go collect it yourself. Every outpost, every power pylon, everything that is outside of your ship automatically comes with you. So yes, it would destroy it if it stayed there. So you see they use 2 energy here to climb up this bigger cliff. So you'll have that in the next zone. So once you get to the next zone, again, you don't have your outpost anymore. So you need to go explore the new zone, find a new minerals outpost, a new metal outpost, new rupidium, explore the area, find new things to explore. There was new anomalies. There was new POIs that I probably can't talk about. So there's just more interesting stuff. More stuff to find for your altars that can help them, you know, like increase their state. This is the deleting rocks that I was talking about. Like some areas are blocked by rocks, so you have to build these little lasers to delete them to get access to them. So that's kind of the ebb and flow. All while, of course, there's various altars on your base based on the ones you choose as well. They all have different conflicts, different issues, different necessities. So you're doing kind of little survival exploration on the outside, but on the inside there's like mass colony sim, or not mass, but there's colony sim narrative, like that kind of stuff. The Stunner Zone is everything. Can you rebuild it if you lost your fast travel? You don't return to that zone. You are basically trying to outrun the sun, Rolanda. You're just done and move on. You take all your stuff with you and you don't go back to that area. You go back to that area if you do another playthrough, but like that's it for your playthrough. So there's their mobile base here in the Act 2. Obviously a fair bit bigger than the one I had. So yeah, so that's kind of the ebb and flow of the game. My thoughts. And then we can, if anybody has any other questions. My thoughts are still very positive about the game. I know immediately people are going to go, oh, well, he's sponsored, and no, I was not paid for this. I'm not sponsored to pay this, and in fact, they heavily encouraged us to be like when we had like our dinners and stuff, they wanted to hear like criticism and feedback. I even talked to the lead dev about some of the stuff. I do have some concerns with the game, like don't get me wrong. Overall, it was great. The graphics were nice for like, you know, like AA game, very immersive. The narrative choices were definitely there. My concerns with the game were like, it still like started pretty slow. And I think I'm okay with that. But you know, things ramp out of control pretty quickly for sure, because it's just a multiplicative effect of like, you just build your base bigger. There's more necessities the more altars you have. There's more need. Your base has higher and higher needs constantly of like supply of metals and stuff, and the juggling. You know, when you have one altar to assign to like 3 stations, it's much more simple than when you have like 5 altars that need to juggle around between like 20 stations. And you know, think of like what they did with Frostpunk, right? Where you're like, I need oil in Frostpunk, but now I need heat, and now I need metal, and like you're trying to balance everything, and it's kind of the same frantic mess in this game in a good way, right? Like it stresses you because somebody needs to be making food, but you need metals, because if you don't have metals, you can't build more batteries, and if you don't have batteries, then you can't get up this cliff, and you can't get up this cliff, you can't go to the next like quest objective, and you know, so like it's like that kind of thing. So it does ramp out of control, and it does become a lot of fun, and I started getting some narrative choices that I was kind of like, oh. But it is a little slow to start, for sure. I'm not going to say that's a bad thing or a good thing. For me, though, and maybe I'm a little biased, of course, because I'd already done the beginning part again, so I was like, okay, let's go through the paces again. There might be some people that I think if they're like impatient and they see what the game offers early in the tutorial, which goes on for a bit, and they're very comprehensive with the tutorial, as you can see. Like, these kind of pop-ups happen a lot. They teach you exactly how to build your outposts at the beginning of the game, and how to connect pylons, and how to cook food, and like they have like a big codex area where you can reference everything. So they're very, very good about making sure you know how to play the game. It's just that if some people are looking to jump in this game and like right away like crazy narrative choices and tense situations out in the world, like, you're not going to get that right away. Like, straight up, right? There's no difficulty in this game from what I remember, like, difficulty setting. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there isn't. So I think some people will get, frankly, maybe a little bored and might tap out before getting to the good stuff. Now, it doesn't take an insane amount of time for its worth. I would say, like, the average person getting through, like, the beginning prologue and the tutorial before you move on to Act 1 will probably take you, like, I don't know, an hour to an hour and a half, maybe, if you're slow and want to explore extra at the beginning and, like, really, like, take in everything. You can obviously just rush through it, too, if you want. It'll take you 20, 30 minutes. And once you get to Act 1, I'd say that's when it starts to ramp up. And by, like, mid-Act 1, you're starting to, like, really feel the game flow. I just think it might be a little slow for some people. That's all. And, hey, to be fair, that just might be one of those, like, not every game's for everyone. I don't think they did a bad job with it for what it's worth. I think they were overly good about, like, tutorial and stuff. I just, if people are looking for, like, quick-paced stuff, it's certainly not at the beginning. If they're looking for that, like, hit of, like, moral choice to make and high narrative and whatever, it comes basically as you develop into the game and as you get more altars and stuff, you know? Other concerns I had with the game were, like, there was a lot of... We had this discussion a couple days ago when I got back to, and I said we'd talk about it more during the presentation. I can't really... you're not going to see it in this video because they didn't provide any ship content in that video on purpose. But there was, like, some pretty rough... oh, perfect. Like, the graphics are a little floaty. The facial animations are, like, not very good at all. Like, it's just generic mouth movement. So when you're talking face-to-face constantly with somebody, it starts to drain on you in a bit. Some of the animations... Now, I will say the animations last year when I played were way worse. This year they're much better, but they're still a little stiff with some of the things they do. Some of the UI looks like a little placeholdery, stuff like that. That being said, half of it is like, I respect and understand that this is not like a massive AAA studio. They're not mocapping, whatever. So I get it, no problem. I did actually talk to the lead dev about this. Oh, and there's other things like, there was just like typos in like some of the what's the word I'm looking for? Some of the captions. Some of the captions, like, straight up had, like, just some typos or misspelled words, because you can tell it was somebody that was, like, not native English speaking, trying to spell out of the word that was, like, in English that wasn't so, like, just some, like, kind of, like, they needed to, like, go over that stuff. Now, I did talk to the lead dev about it, and I was like, hey, man, you know, I had a lot of fun playing the altars, just so you know, like, I had some issues with this, and I found some, like, there was some bugs where, like, the altars were, like, running into a wall on your base and stuff like that. And he's like, hey, dude, we've been nothing but, like, polishing right now for the past, like, 2 or 3 months, and we'll continue to do it, or however many months. And he told me that the build that they gave us to play was actually, like, a pretty old build compared to what they internally had. So, you know, benefit of the doubt. Hopefully some of that stuff's cleaned up. I'm not exactly still expecting, like, insane mocap facial details, and that's okay. I think it would be silly to expect that in this game, but I hope I like at least a little better, you know, at least a little better. And, like, definitely some of those bugs and, like, caption, like, typos and stuff fixed up would be really nice. Otherwise, the game was really cool, man. Like, it was definitely immersive. It was definitely neat. Music was great. All the sound effects, blah, blah, blah. The voice acting was really good. It's all voiced by Alex, my buddy Alex, or I've showed you pictures of us, like, hanging out and stuff, by Alex Jordan. He's a good voice actor. He's done a bunch of games. It was actually really interesting talking to him because he actually did all of the... Well, it's literally all one guy, but slightly different guys, right? So he did the voice acting for all of the altars, but, like, he had to make them all have their own personality. So it's actually really interesting talking to him about that and his experience with, in fact, you guys saw this already, and his experience with that, you know, making one guy sound a little more tough and one guy sound a little more smart-ass. Yeah, he played Mr. Hands in Cyberpunk, that's right. So he voices all of them. So from a voice acting perspective, all that kind of stuff, like, it's very, very well done. The music was great. You know, the environment, the graphics, in my opinion, like, we're nice, we're immersive for sure. There were some really cool vistas to see. So everything was great there. Like I said, My concerns were more just like clean up some stuff, the pacing of the game. I think that like, you know, I talked to a couple of people after they played too, a couple of the other creators, and certainly some of the mechanics didn't really hit for everybody, and that's fair. Like, you know, it's not a game. Not every game is for everyone. Like, some people didn't really like the whole like mining outpost building thing. It's just kind of like busy work for them, and that's fair. Not everyone's gonna like all of the like the different genre mishmash stuff. You know, I even talked to like some of the devs and stuff on the final night. I was like, you know, like, in all honesty, what are you guys worried about in terms of like criticism from people playing this game? And they were worried about like, you know, the fact that it does have like base management in it, and it does have like survival elements in it and crafting elements in it, but like pretty light, like not nearly to the extent of like how deep those would go in a game of that genre purely. And you know, they're worried, for instance, that people, kind of like we had like with No Rest for the Wicked, they're worried that people that get into that situation expecting one thing and then like kind of having the light Scooty Puff Jr. version of that, and they're going to be disappointed with the game. So it is what it is. That's why, you know, I'm trying to like present it very honestly to you guys. Like, it is not super in depth on survival crafting, and like a lot of the exploration is just I mean, it is fun exploring, but like, it's, you know, like, go build your mining outpost and then go do your stuff. So yeah, I think I covered everything pretty decently. I hope I didn't do anything I wasn't supposed to in terms of talking about NDA stuff. If I did, I'm going to get a very angry email later. But yeah, I was basically allowed to talk about everything that was in the first video and only show the second video and talk about like the general biome and stuff. So I think we're good. It is on Game Pass. Yep. And it is I don't know exactly. It is pretty modestly priced if you're not a Game Pass person like I am. I think it's like it's definitely not AAA, or not even AAA plus that they're doing these days. It's not on here. I think they're doing like $40 or something, or 35, somewhere in there, like American. Like nothing crazy. Quite reasonable. I will say though that the game, they said, is like the length's supposed to be like 25 to 30 hours for a first playthrough. Overall, like my vibe with the game was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to play it again. I'm not forced to play it. I'm not contracted to play it. Not paid to play it even. But it had me interested enough for sure. I just really like the whole like messed up narrative choice stuff. You know, that's a lot of and like difficulty, and that's what a lot of like overwhelming difficulty. And it very much does have a lot of like that Frostpunk formula in the translation of like a different genre and narrative, if that makes sense. So like, you know, and you're constantly juggling what your priority tasks are and what resources you need, while making difficult, like sometimes moral decisions in Frostpunk. And a lot of that is transferred into this game in a different medium and setting. You know what I mean? Are they planning content after release? That's a good question, actually. I don't know. I never asked them. Never asked them. Planet Crafter on steroids? No, it's not really like Planet Crafter. Much less emphasis on like resource and base building than that game. But yeah, no, it was pretty cool. We'll see what they clean up. I expect this game, I'm hoping this game does well, because I think they're really good people over there. I'm expecting this game, after like my impressions, to probably land in like the 8 to hopefully 8.5 region. I think publicly would be my like guess. I think a lot of... He's using a battery here because he didn't have energy to go up the cliff. I think a lot of this game, in terms of its rating in the end, lives and dies on its narrative. And I told them that, and they agreed with me. There are multiple endings and stuff like that. I'm obviously not going to get into the story elements heavily with you guys, because I know more than I'm allowed to talk about. But you know, the main focus of the game is definitely the narrative and the setting and like what you're doing and all that kind of stuff. And if it's done and performed well by the end of it, it'll be really cool, because you basically put yourself in a really fucked up situation that even you guys playing early on, even from the demo, you can kind of tell already, if I recall correctly, you're already like, how the hell is this going to work out in the end? Because it's just like not. Like, there's no way this works out properly in the end for various reasons. So I'm curious to see how they stick the ending and how the story develops and stuff like that over the course of it. And, I mean, we even saw from some game trailers, there's, like, seriously, like, definitely some fucked up stuff, like an altar, like, in one of the game trailers had, like, his arm cut off and, like, all that kind of stuff, so yeah. Cool. So, hopefully that gave you guys a good preview. I'm more than happy to, if anybody has any questions or any of the questions I didn't get to, like while you guys were asking and stuff, hit me up right now. I'll answer what I can, what I'm allowed to, or even what I know about. I might not even know. But if anybody has any questions, shoot. I think I've given a pretty good rundown. I'm excited for it. We're going to be playing it in, like I said, 3 weeks. And yeah, man. It looks... I was impressed with the amount of polish. Not everybody that came this year, only a small handful of people that came this year were there last year, so I was able to see the game a year ago and now, and they've definitely done a fair bit of work on it, which is really nice to see, especially with adding like dangers out in the world with the anomalies and stuff like that. So, any combat, more like zone hazards and dangers than like enemies. Lobster. No worries, Yolzy. Any Baldos? Yes. Is this a walking sim? You will not have a lot of combat in this game. It is a lot of just exploration, walking, and some like zone. Here, let me see if I can. I think there was one at the beginning. Yeah, here we go. This to what we saw, by the way. Again, first like third or quarter of the game. This is the extent of like danger and combat in the game. Is like there's like not just this type, there's various types, but these kind of anomalies that do various bad things to you, and you got to get rid of them by like getting rid of these nuclei. It's a barren planet. Was there to fight yourself? So yeah, so these like anomalies here, and you got to eliminate this kind of stuff out of the way. I don't know what Solus Project is, so maybe. This guy's clearly playing with a controller. Oh yeah, you can see the you can see the inputs at the bottom. You can play with a controller, by the way, if you're wondering. So yeah. Cool. All right. Any other questions before we take a little quickie break here, so I can go feed the cats and stuff? Are we good? I don't know what Solus Project is though. Like, what is that? Is this going to be EA? I and whatever other creators and stuff in media will have... Well, okay. Access to the game is, like, happening in 2 days. Public embargo for the game lifts the day before for, like, reviews and streamers playing it and stuff. So June 12th, I think. So we'll be playing it June 12th. And the game full launches on June 13th. If you're asking, is there any paid early access, like pay an extra $20, get 3 days early access? No. And they're actually quite not fond of doing that, if they can help it, from what I gathered with them. Because I actually did ask them about that, like their stance on it. So no, there's no, outside of like douchebag streamer stuff, there's no paid early access or anything like that. Dune Awakening is on the 10th, with early access on the 5th. Black Sue. Okay. Any last questions? I'll catch up on everything. Alright. We good. Ooh, yours. Ooh. Alrighty. Yeah, so if you're into like narrative sci-fi stuff with some kind of like fun mini games, or like mini games on the side, like, you know, resource collection, stuff like that, and like heavy narrative elements and decision making with some light base building, then this game's probably for you. Cool. There is a map. There is a map in this one, Dongs. You saw me do this, try and buy this? Cool. Cause sloot at checkout. No, I'm just kidding. Alrighty. So that's that. Yeah, the visuals, the aesthetic of the planet looks really good. They've done a good job. They're a small team. I forgot to ask how many, but like they're a small team. I think it's like Actually, I'm curious to ask. I'll probably mess this Lukish. I don't want to misquote the number. But every time I talk to them, they're like, yeah, man, we're a small team. We're a small team. I was like, I know. I was curious. Will there be a code? Oh, I doubt it. I don't think there's actually a code. But I mean, I'll ask if there's a code sloot thing. But I don't think they have like a creator program or anything yet. At least I think maybe in the future they might. But at 11-bit. Okay. We will have... I guess that's it for this. Obviously, if you have any questions later, like feel free to ask. I did want to add this in. I totally forgot. Another complaint I had with the game was, especially early on. Well, actually, not even early on, just in general. There were some times, depending on what, because there's so many tasks to do, right? And a lot of those tasks, like processing minerals or whatever, it takes time to mine, to cook, to whatever. And based on, like, for me, a lot of the fun in the game was managing the different altars and exploring and finding new stuff and building the outposts and stuff like that. That's what I enjoyed a lot in the game. But there were often times when you needed stuff for your base. You know what I mean? Like, you needed minerals. You needed... There actually is one. Jeddick. You needed minerals, you needed organics, whatever. And because these don't passively mine, none of these things passively happen, and you can only assign, especially early on when you have only 1 or 2 altars, and they only work at a specific pace, if you need more stuff, sometimes you would just straight up, like, start the day, go to a mining outpost, press E for 30 seconds, and your day was over. And then... because you just needed mass minerals or something. And then you would just come back to the base, sleep, and do it again. Not the most exciting gameplay, right? And it was a little, like, maintenance-y. Frankly, I don't think that's going to change. I think that's just kind of part of the gameplay right now. And it's really impossible to kind of cover all your bases equally. So yeah, so that was, like, kind of one complaint I had, is just some of the days were just straight up kind of boring. It's kind of like... well, we need minerals today, and we need organics tomorrow, so the next 2 days are holding E for 30 seconds. I'm not sure if they've addressed that in any way for the live product. We'll see, but definitely a little bit of a complaint I had. Now, there was some stuff later for return on at least a couple of the materials, so I didn't need to do that as much with every material, so it wasn't as painstaking, but early on... and still later on, too, just not as bad. There was a lot of, like... you don't do anything exciting that day. You just straight up go to a mining outpost and press E, and that's it. So, yeah, exactly. It could be, right? There could be... well, actually, hold up. If I remember... if I'm allowed to talk about this. There could be. Yes, I believe there might have been some things tech tree related that might have some automatic mining and stuff. There's something else I was going to say, but you're right, there might be. But early on, yeah, that does happen, for sure. Cool. I just wanted to get that last thought in for review there before we finish up.